Hello, my name is Anita Loomis and I am a painter, and I am here today to speak to you about Tomorrowland is the title. They vary in abstraction, but they are landscapes, some more fantastical and some actually from sites here at the park across the street, the Royal River Park. I think I decided I was an artist when I was 12-ish, 13-ish. We had a very artistic family. My grandfather was a sign company owner, calligrapher, sign painter, gold leaf artist. My mother painted, did stained glass. She was a seamstress, that was her thing, but she enjoyed exploring painting and all kinds of things. My mother and my aunt would get these little kits to make sun catchers, and I was really little when they would do that, and I'd play with the glass and the nuggets and the light and all that. So that was my first introduction to stained glass. And I think by 14, I was like, no, I'm going to be a glass artist, and that's what I'm going to do. I was able to get a wonderful position at an architectural glass studio in Orlando, Florida. The industry has since diminished. There are fewer and fewer studios all the time. It's a wonderful medium for public art because anybody and everybody can enjoy that. Architectural glass is a very team-based medium, but I really felt like I had my own voice that I wanted to develop. So I started painting. And the first paintings were about this big on little postcards, but I quickly felt most comfortable in larger scale pieces because I was used to the architectural scale. And I like having my periphery covered by the area. I like being inside the artwork when I'm developing it. I think the art movement that had the biggest influence on my commitment and development to painting were the abstract expressionists. No particular one, all of them. I'm partial to the women in abstract expressionism because they're very much unsung heroes, but they're all very important. I think that movement was very powerful and had a lot of legs. I kept at my painting practice. I expanded my visual vocabulary. I got involved with art galleries and really started working as a professional painter and professional artist. I love working with oils. I think they give me a similar pop of color and saturation. There's nothing that rivals glass for capturing natural light and color, but the oils can come close and I can play with texture. As you might notice, you'll see strong line work, and that is just ingrained in me from so many years working in leaded stained glass. I have really grown as an artist in the last 3 years or so. I still love working with glass. I still have a small kit and I still have some glass. I feel strongly about sticking to painting because I think when you stick to one medium for a long time, it's second nature to you. You don't have to learn a new medium to work out ideas. I don't have to give it a second thought. It's intuitive now and I can just concentrate on the theme. I might pull in something from Miro or maybe something from cave paintings or something from pop art, all in the same painting, but I'm the only one who knows that and others may or may not pick up on it. But that's part of the fun of painting. It starts with sketches. From the sketches, I get a pretty well thought out idea, and then I'll just use charcoal on a blank canvas to block in the theme. I'm not getting detailed at all. I do not detail the drawings on the canvas. I just put some marks down. The drawing itself should be in my head by now. I can tell within a week or two if the painting's really going to work. I have a tendency, and most artists do, if we don't have something else to focus on, we can overcook a work of art and just beat it to death. So I will turn away from it so it's to my back and work on something else, usually with a similar palette but not exactly the same because I don't want to waste any paint. So if I have paint on my palette left over from the one on one side, I'm gonna try and use it something on the other side. So I'm a Yankee, I'm trying to be frugal. I just let these paintings evolve on their own, but I do generally start with a palette in mind, and I pretty much stick to it. Not every painting's successful. I think 20%, and I'm being generous, I feel are pretty successful, and there's like 40% okay, and then there's 20% that go in the paint over this category and recycle that canvas. For the first handful of years I was painting, I was more interested in using the materials. I was experimenting with very abstract compositions, just the basics of design. And I wasn't really working out specific themes. I was getting to know these materials. I do experiment once in a while, like a true experiment, you know, what's it like to paint in this style or that artist's style, just to get a feel for it and a sense for it, to see if I understand what they're doing better. But I'm now just trying to work in my own voice. I was returning to the same themes. So Tomorrowland is one of those themes, which was focused on landscape, environment, ecology, with a very playful and futuristic perspective. So some pieces are more realistic and representative, others are very whimsical, abstract. Here at the Yarmouth History Center, this Tomorrowland theme, I've got work from Purgatory Chasm, where my husband and I used to hike. That's in central Massachusetts in the Sutton area. And that piece is very bold, very abstract. In the foreground, I had visited many times. I'd done sketching there, and so this piece is kind of an amalgam of visits. So some of the foreground life forms that are drawn in with oil pastel or oil stick are very abstract, and me trying to imagine what might be there in years to come. Some areas have very pronounced line, again, hearkening back to the stained glass work that I have, and just, I'm driven by color. There's a lot of heavy branching and line, but there's light in the middle. There's the gold and yellow and reflection, and there's peach tones, and there's color and light bouncing off of everything. So, but there's a lot of muted tones in that too to ground it. There are little glints of copper in that painting. Again, I like to incorporate metal leaf, gold, left over from my grandfather's practice when he was alive as a sign painter, and a gilder. I inherited a supply of gold leaf, brushes, and all kinds of information. Specifically for the History Center, I executed 3 or 4 paintings that were so site-specific they would be easily recognizable. So I didn't abstract them as much as I normally would. The piece titled Royal River, that is somewhat abstracted, but I like that strong gestural line, strong German influence there, expressionistic, and that has a limited color palette, but one that felt like it fit. I think, you know, it's kind of got a winter or late fall feel to it. I had a whole bunch of photos. I played with the photos, pieced them, color shifted them, and once I get that in my mind's eye, I abandon it. I don't go back to it. I'm not copying from it. I think that hurts you when you do that. It's reference, and I set it aside and just see where the painting wants to go. And then there were a few smaller ones. The marker, the ruins, I think old steps. You should be able to find those in the park if you're walking around. They should be easy to find. So I thought, I like that fun aspect of it. I thought the people of Yarmouth would enjoy that, and they could kind of take those images and go find them across the street. I know the little ones are happy to find the locations in the smaller paintings. There's some variety in the painting styles in this show. So there is a bit of a range, more so than I would in another body of work. And right behind me, I have Beyond the Dunes, which is from a few years ago, quite abstract, quite whimsical. So it's just kind of a sketch of, you know, wanting to see that ocean, that coast, approaching it, and you're going through the dunes, just waiting to see that water. Meadow, I was painting that in January, dying for some warmth in my cold studio where I paint. So I was thinking warm pink peach, you know, those bright, fresh yellow greens of early spring. When can I see those outside? Putting in these funny characters that could be birds or other things in there. So that's kind of a celebration of spring to come, you know, and what's going to pop up. So color drives the development of them. I really like the feel of it. I like the direction of it, the color palette, and so I'd like to execute a few more along that line, but I hope to do, you know, a nice large-scale one of that. I'd like to immerse myself in that one. I would like to say something about the small painting that is a drabbit, and that's not a typo. I was imagining what a deer and a rabbit over the centuries, you know, what if there was some kind of a cross mutation of some kind, and deer suddenly had the ears of rabbits to hear things. So anyway, the abstracted drabbit is an intentional, kind of a chimera creature that I was playing with. There's one of New England that looks more like the Southwest, and that's one of the most recent paintings I've done. I love cartoons and animation. I grew up in the 70s, you know, so it was Looney Tunes. I could probably list the Saturday morning lineup. I was probably channeling, you know, Bugs Bunny Roadrunner kind of thing going through there. But I think, you know, what I was saying about environment, you know, it sinks in, it's in you, and, you know, we're a TV generation, or I am of a TV generation. It feels fun, you know, so that's another reason I like lines so much, and it reminds me of that. The piece Pond, I was thinking about insects, or plants that fly, or plants that swim. I'm sure there were probably plants that, you know, they move themselves around already. But we don't know what's going to develop wings or a different kind of propulsion or energy system. So, you know, evolution's full of surprises, and we're still discovering things. I'm driven by color, so the color palette is very deliberate. Something like this piece, I'm thinking summer, blue sky, sunny day, some gold tones in the foreground. How do I feel walking, you know, toward that path? I do get questions about the use of copper leaf, gold leaf, silver leaf in my work. In the stained glass work, there's a lot of interest and play with light. And so paintings are wonderful for color and texture, but I like to add that element of light, that reflexivity, that other dimension that, you know, when the lights are low, paintings don't read very well, but you can strategically use metal and reflective objects to kind of catch someone's eye in the periphery. But I think the metal has a feel to it. It's a feel that I like to incorporate in there. It's far more pronounced in the work on paper, which that's a whole other treatment and has a whole other feel to it. I like having that in there. I like knowing that it's there. It's kind of a connection. You know, with stained glass, it's lead and copper. You know, I really like working with metal. So I can still work with metal in a way. I can still have that, even though I'm working on paintings. I do enjoy using it because it was my grandfather's materials, you know, and his brushes, and it's tactile. You know, I can experience what he experienced, you know, in my hand. It makes it special. It carries it through another generation or two. He really did inspire me to have an interest in color and painting. I think I should explain a little bit about the ecological climate change aspect of this theme that I'm exploring over time. I don't want to use art to raise alarms. What I want to use my work for is more of a, if I can help prompt a more positive conversation or some positive creative thought about ways to deal with the repercussions of our effect on the climate. I think that when people are alerted to any danger and we see it in front of, I think we tend to shut down and not want to hear it. I think we pull away. I'm hoping that I might be able to spark some interest in research or interest from young people to think about how the local landscape is changing. Those are the kind of things that drive my imagination, that fuel my sketching and the development of the work as I'm kind of in the zone, letting these paintings evolve on their own. Art and environment is very important. It matters. It sets the tone for the inside and the envelope of a building. How do the people who are inside that building, whether it's a public space or a home, the art that's inside, the architectural elements that are inside, really impact the people who are in that space. And I think that's why I try to keep my work more playful. I want to inspire people to feel good around these pieces. I don't want to share inner sadness or angst. I want people to connect through learning and through feeling good about what's around them. So even if they're not paying attention to the artwork around them, it can still impact somebody. They can still sense it, feel it. Just the psychology of color alone really has a strong effect on people. Someone once asked me what my scariest moment was as an artist, and you don't think of studio art or painters as having particularly scary experiences, but last year I was delivering an exhibit early in the year over to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I had a 6-foot by 6-foot painting on the roof of my van, and we were going over the Sarah Long Bridge, which is quite high. It was a particularly gusty morning, and we had it roped onto the roof, but the gust of wind took the painting in the air, off the roof of the car, tumbled and fell like 100 feet behind us. I jumped out of the van, running down the bridge to grab it. We got a hold of it. It was like holding a sailboat. We ran it back to the van, and it took us a little bit to lash it back down. It landed, so if you picture the corner, right? It landed on the tip, on the corner, and it grounded away. The painting itself was perfectly fine. The show was supposed to be hung the next day. We put brass corners on all the corners, and you couldn't even tell it had been hit, and we fixed it later. The funny thing was, though, it was a painting of a boat, and if it had gone in the river, it would have been such an excellent video. The website, AnitaLoomis.com, is easy to find. I keep it up to date. I'm pretty good about that. Katie's fantastic, and I'm so happy that I got to share these with the community, and I was really tickled to be able to do, a few pieces specific to the Royal River. But she's been absolutely fantastic, easy to work with, and so open to whatever I had to offer. I look forward to doing it again sometime in the future when I have some new exciting things to share.
For more information about the Yarmouth History Center, please visit www.yarmouthmehistory.org or visit us at the History Center. We're at 118 East Elm Street in Yarmouth, and we're open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 until 4.